Now we're going to talk about materials. And this is where things start to get really interesting with Lagoa. The materials, as I mentioned in a previous video, is this compound right here. By default, I have a Lagoa main material. And the material is what's going to make the difference between your simulation looking like it's made up of dirt, mud, honey, maple syrup, water, wine, whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so it could be literally thousands and thousands and millions of different types of substances from nature. So how do you make something go from dirt to water or from mud to honey and things like that? Well, if I open up this material, this compound, you see I've got myself a lot of parameters. Right off the bat, we have a ton of parameters that we can adjust. Okay, so we've got pressure settings, viscosity settings. If you look over here, we've got inelastic settings, we have elasticity settings, and then we've got plastic flow down at the bottom. Okay, so there's a lot of parameters, and these parameters can be all adjusted in millions of different combinations to create different effects. Now, with that said, it would be impossible for me in a tutorial to be able to go over every possible combination of parameters here. So I can't sit here for the next year going over how to make, mud, water, quicksand, dirt, heavy dirt, regular sand, beach sand, and every possible material in nature. There's just no way I could do it. I would love to take you through steps and show you how to do each one, but it's just physically impossible. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break this down, give you an overview of what these different parameters do, and then from there, it'll be up to you to use what you learn to come up with creative ideas and create different types of materials. Now, with that said, Lagoa is actually made a little bit easier in Softimage because we have preset materials that we can use. Okay? And they come shipped with Softimage, and you can go ahead and start using them. Alright? So a more advanced user will want to use the main material and adjust all these settings to get what they want. So if I've been working with Lagoa for a long time, I've done projects with it, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I want to create, say, a kind of viscous mud, then I would use the main material. I would come in here and set up all my settings exactly how I want. But for beginners and for most people, you might want to use preset materials, okay? And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Alright, so if you feel overwhelmed with all these parameters, don't worry about it. You can actually simplify everything, and you'll see later, and you'll go, okay, that's a smart way to work with Lagoa. Alright, so right now in this video I'm going to talk about the pressure settings. The pressure settings, now this isn't written in stone, it's not some kind of rule you have to follow. You don't have to do what I say, but this is my, official i3D Jack recommendation if you want to see it that way. Okay, pressure settings are best used when you're doing fluids. If you're doing, a cup of juice, water, wine, whatever, some kind of fluid, some kind of regular fluid. You want to use these pressure settings because these are going to be the ones that give you the best watery looking effect for your fluids. Okay. By default, you notice everything is set to 1. That's really not good. But let's see how they affect our particles here. So I'm going to start to emit these particles. Now my surface tension is set to 1. This is going to make the particles want to kind of clump up together. If I take that surface tension down to 0, you notice the particles start to spread out. Okay? And you notice even when they emit up here, they start to spread out. So if you want a fluid that kind of spreads out, doesn't stick or bead like water or some other more viscous fluids do, you might want to take the surface tension down. I never really like taking it down to 0. Sometimes you may want to, but giving it a little bit of surface tension just gives it a little bit more personality. And giving it a lot of surface tension is only good if you're doing something very clumpy, maybe something like a syrup or something like that, or you just want the particles to kind of clump up. You can see right there how they clumped up. Internal pressure is going to basically control. If I take that now, you can see the particles start to spread out. This basically makes the particles want to come together, okay? Kind of like what the surface tension does, but a little bit different. Kind of hard to explain. It's better if you just adjust the parameters and see what it does over here. basically, like I said, it makes the particles want to come together. There's this sort of internal pressure that wants to force particles to clump up. So increasing that will give you particles that want to bead and clump up together. Very similar to, say, for example, the T-1000 or whatever it was called from Terminator 2, the liquid mercury or whatever. Okay, so external pressure, if I take that down, notice that this actually makes the particles overall want to have a little bit more cohesion. Okay, so it applies an external pressure, if you want to think about it that way, to push the particles together. The boundary pressure and internal interface pressure, these I usually leave alone. I don't really mess with these a lot. The main ones that are really going to give your fluid personality and change the properties of your fluid are these parameters up here, the pressure settings up here. Okay, so these main three parameters are the ones that you need to adjust to change the behavior of your liquid. Okay, liquids usually work with viscosity, so if you're doing like a thick oil or something like that, you may want to turn on viscosity. If you're doing like a fluid like a water, I usually like to turn that off. If you turn this on and you have a lot of viscosity through the viscosity multiplier and the viscosity contrast, you're going to have yourself very thick fluid. You can see here how this stuff is clumping up, almost like a syrup. It's got a lot of viscosity right now. Let me actually play this from the beginning so you can see. You can see how this stuff really, really clumps up. It's going to behave more like a thick syrup or something like that. You can see how they start to clump up. They attract each other. So that's what the viscosity is going to do. So if you want something more fluid-like, like water, you want to reduce the viscosity. Or in many cases, what I like to do is I like to just turn it off. And if you want to do something like honey, then you definitely need to turn this viscosity setting on and adjust the viscosity multiplier and the contrast. So I think that's going to do it for the pressure or the fluid settings here in this video.